Hello and welcome back. We are entering into Game 3 here today, and we are already getting through the ban phase. We see that Nautilus ban, we see the Graves ban, we see the Vladimir ban, just the same as last game from the Legends 27. On the other side, we see a Syndra ban coming through from Final Light Gaming, along with that Fiora and Camille, still targeting top lane, but they are definitely not liking the way that Syndra went for them last game. So much power packed into that pick, and they are not wanting to have any of it. However, the Legends 27 also noticed that Ashe for them worked very well with its ability to force these engages for their team. So they pick it back up. Lee Sin actually picked up as an early game jungler for Final Light Gaming, and it seems that with the Lulu, they are definitely looking to see if they can recreate the same bot lane.
Right, and I'm looking at this Lee Sin Lulu pickup, and it looks like they're kind of aware that they need to have some shields, which kind of makes me wonder what they might be going with next, because if Ivern and Zyra and Ashe are being picked up by the Legends 27, what are Final Light going to be picking up to kind of counter that? There's quite a few options, especially with those two champions. And initially, like I said, I was thinking of the shields. So I'm wondering whether or not they're going to go ahead and pick another champion with a shield, or if they're going to go with some CC, or what exactly they're planning on doing with this. I know that Lulu typically is going to be a support. So it's,
We are seeing a Shen locked in top lane and a Varus ADC. With the Varus ADC, that is going to be really good poke against the Zyra and Ashe with his Q. That has massive damage, especially if he can sneak that in between minions and hit the champions as the first target. Shen top lane definitely looking to be protective and add that tank barrier for their team.
Right. Although I'm not going to lie, I've seen, I know that Varus is starting to come back into the meta as an ADC, but I'm still not completely under the impression that he might not necessarily be a mid. It's a nice flex pick. They aren't necessarily sure who they're going to be fighting against, especially against a Talia. That might be a really actually useful pick against her, considering he has such long range against her. So it's going to come down to whoever this last pick is, and it's going to be a Kassadin. Ooh.
Let's take a look at that Gangplank Shen matchup quick, because the Gangplank will have a lot of damage and sustained damage at that against a Shen, but Shen is definitely able to resist some of the auto attacks that Gangplank would be throwing out, and we do have the Kassadin locked in against that Talia. That is actually a very potent pick. Now, most people do not fully understand the fact that Talia, when she lays down the stones, those stones are disrupted when enemies travel through it, either by being forced through it by her knocking them through it, or when they dash. However, Kassadin, with his Rift Walk, that is a blink ability, which means he does not dash, he instantly appears at that location, thus he will easily be able to move around the Talia's stone weaving, which is very consistent and linear damage, that counters many people that have dash abilities in hypermobility, and people that have predictable walking patterns, as she can walk along with them.
Right.
Kassadin, able to get that flexible movement and able to actually counter a lot of her damage.
Right. And I think a lot of the reason why you pick a Talia is to make sure that you kind of have a creative way to start some team fights. I don't necessarily play her all that often, and the few times I did, I ended up playing her as a support. But the few times that kind of stand out in my mind in terms of some of the amazing stuff she's been capable of doing have all led from the wall. Like, if you're able to maneuver around your enemy and kind of throw that wall down and make it impossible for them to retreat, that's when you start to see some really, really interesting situations going on, especially with the Gangplank ult and the Zyra ult to be used at the same time. Daisy's going to be throwing down quite a bit of damage, and Daisy's also going to be used with CC in a situation like that. So essentially, if things are done right, if they were, say, to force the entire Final Light Gaming crew into the Dragon Pit or the Baron Pit and Talia just walls it off, all that means is everyone's just going to throw everything in there as much as they possibly can. Like, all of these champions are ranged in one instance or another. So it's not like they couldn't actually shoot over walls if it came down to it.
Absolutely. One thing to notice is that also the Zyra, massive AoE ult, and Talia is able to, get a decent amount of AoE with her ult. You see Gangplank with his massive ult that slows as well. That chains really well into that Zyra ult. The Ashe with the long range engage, they are looking very heavily at these team fight potentials. And it's not looking terrible as far as how Final Light is set up. Their team fight with that Shen and with that Varus have massive potential, as Varus is able to cut through health bars very effectively with his combinations of autoing and then using abilities to do massive chunks of damage.
Right, and it looks like there's going to be quite a bit of pick playmaking potential for Final Light Gaming. Shen with his ult coming through and throwing down a taunt, and Lee Sin doing his ward jumping roundhouse kicks. Definitely have the capacity to set really, really significant situations up, especially for Varus and Lulu to take advantage of. Lulu's going to have both Lee Sin and Shen's back, and Varus is going to just, like we all know, he's going to be throwing arrows from the back as much as he possibly can. If he lands that ult and it's able to kind of chain into multiple people, a lot of different things can have a chance of happening, and a lot of people will not necessarily, there's enough CC to not have people attack for a good few seconds, at least 5, I think. So
one thing that I am noticing here is with this Ivern, he is exceedingly effective. We have not yet seen Head of Kha'Zix on this Ivern pick. We've seen his Elise, it has been very effective. But we're going to have to see him in the opposite role, where instead of trying to force plays to happen, he has to be that reactive component that responds to the plays happening and then turns them around for his own team.
all right.
Another thing is this Kassadin pick. Personally, this may just be because I am a huge fan of Kassadin as a champion, and I have spent way too much time playing him. But Kassadin overall, what he focuses on is being an assassin that scales better than any other assassin in game towards that late game potential. With unlike most assassins who have to worry a lot about being able to deal with tanks, Kassadin is someone who, when it hits that later game portions, is able to deal enough consistent damage using his Rift Walk and using his Nether Blade to even chunk out tanks in bursts.
Right. And it looks like there might be another invade going on with the Final Light Gaming. They're all maneuvering around top. Looks like there's separate pings. Ivern looks like he might be getting ready to cheese jungle, but they also didn't leave wards behind, so no one knows where anyone is right now. And they might have actually just snuck in.
If they did, that could be huge, and this could definitely result in a kill going over to Final Light. Again, we have yet to see what's going on, as the GP has not wandered close enough, and neither has the Ivern and Talia. We just have to wait a few moments. There's 30 seconds left. They are leaving the bush. They are not spotted yet. Ivern might know they're there based off the earlier gangplank. It does not seem they are spotted by a ward there, but it does not seem as if they are going to suffer a whole lot of losses, except for maybe the loss of a couple of CS worth of XP towards the bot lane.
But yeah, all right. So that was kind of held our breath for a second. Didn't know how that was about to turn out. But now we're gonna go ahead and start that laning phase. Lee Sin's getting a little bit of help from his laners, but Varus is gonna go ahead and move back into lane really quick. Kassadin's trying to fight off Talia just because he's a melee mid, so it's gonna be a little difficult to fight against a ranged one.
Yeah, Kassadin's early game is the weakest part of his kit. His abilities, especially at early levels, do not share as high of scaling as many other mages. And with his lower range, he has to take so much bullying during the laning phase before he can get to level 6. and be able to have the potential to try to make these plays. It all comes down to if Kassadin gets ahead, though, he is an absolute monster on the Rift. And a good Kassadin can force the opportunities inside lanes as well to get himself ahead. As you can see, Kassadin is letting this wave build up. A very common thing for Kassadins to do, hiding under that tower, making sure you get the CS, because he is very consistent with his empowered autos and stuff in his ability to get CS even under a tower. We are seeing quite a bit of early aggression from this Taliyah, and Kassadin has had to burn 2/3 of his corrupting potion just to keep his sustain in lane going.
I say always good to kind of make a plan for stuff like that. I don't know if that necessarily would have been a normal pick for a Kassadin, but I think he knew what he was getting into and how much of a disadvantage he would be at by being in lane against Taliyah. And it looks like Lee Sin's coming in to help try and gank. He actually is able to kick Taliyah, but
he does get on top of her, but he is taking a lot of aggro, and here comes that Ivern, not able to land that, though.
Oh, and Taliyah just flashed to try and go ahead and finish off Lee Sin. Lee Sin has, let's say, I believe that is Q. He has 30 health after all of that, so he barely made it out of that situation by the skin of his teeth. And it looks like now we have a fight in top lane where it's Shen versus Gangplank. Shen's doing his part by making sure that he's not taking any damage from this Gangplank as this fight progresses. That's going to be one of those really difficult things for Gangplank to have to worry about, because if he throws down that ability over several barrels, it defeats the entire purpose of the barrels even being there.
Overall, it seems that the Lee Sin definitely suffered overall in that trade. He hasn't gotten very far behind or anything yet, but overall, it is just so much potential and power that is held by, the Taliyah in mid lane. He hasn't been able to affect it that much, even though he burned both her summoners.
Right. You say so down in bot lane. Haven't necessarily talked about that matchup yet. We have Ashe and Zyra versus Varus and Lulu. Ashe and Zyra, that's pretty straightforward, pretty standard, I think, at this point. And it looks like Lee Sin's coming in to try and finish off this Gangplank. Gangplank goes ahead and flashes through the minions, allowing Lee Sin, or forcing Lee Sin to back off because he's unable to follow. But yeah, we haven't, like, Ashe and Zyra seems like a pretty safe lane. Between Ashe's slows and Zyra's roots and long distance damage, I think that they should be pretty much okay in terms of doing things as the laning phase progresses. We have Varus and Lulu as well. How do you feel about that?
The Varus and Lulu is honestly such a decent poke matchup because Varus does have a lot of damage on the Q, but the thing is, a lot of the poke in lane is very dependent on making sure that it's the first to hit champions. Varus's Q loses so much damage as soon as it passes through minions, which means they have to be very cautious about their positioning. Meanwhile, the Zyra, who can place plants and then use her abilities at any point, is able to do these things like just constantly throw aggression without having to worry about standing away from minions.